What you see in front of you may just seem to be a gate called the Porta Maggiore. However, it is more than that. It is a piece of an ancient Roman aqueduct converted into a gate. Unfortunately, given our location and the destruction of much of the aqueduct system for scrap stone, this is the best look we can get right now at what was once one of the greatest aqueduct systems in the world. The famed Roman aqueduct system is once again an idea that was partially stolen from the Romans' forebears, but developed and implemented to an extent that had never been done before. In fact, it took centuries for it to be surpassed in scope or technology. Building aqueducts was not a new idea. It was done by the Greeks and Phoenicians, to name a few civilizations. In fact, there's a very famous Greek aqueduct constructed at Samos. Herodotus described it in detail, and it was in many ways world-renowned. However, Roman culture demanded more aqueducts than ever constructed before. There were three reasons for this. Firstly, Roman culture placed an emphasis on fountains, baths, and gardens, all of which require an immense amount of water. Secondly, because Roman culture put an emphasis on the idea that elites give back with public works, aqueducts became a fashionable way to give the people what they wanted: easy access to fresh water. Finally, specifically in the case of Rome, the high banks of the Tiber made retrieving water difficult and time-consuming, which made the idea of aqueducts all the more enticing. What makes these aqueducts so famous, however, is not the reasons for their construction. It is their scale. The first aqueduct, the Aqua Appia, was constructed in 312 BC by the same man, Appius Claudius Crassus, who designed the Appian Way. Soon, though, the trend caught on, and 260 miles of aqueducts served Rome alone during the aqueduct's heyday. 30 miles of these aqueducts ran on raised arch systems that suspended them above the ground. The reason for this was that though the Romans possessed the ability to create pipes, the materials were either too difficult to work with or too expensive to use all the way from the source of the water to Rome. This meant that the water flowed to Rome not due to pressure, like it does in our water system today, but due to gravity. The aqueducts fell a few feet downward for every mile that it traveled forward. What this meant was that the water could not travel down into a valley and back up again. So most of the time, it needed to cross over an impressive-looking arch bridge in order to get to the other side. It are these raised portions of the system whose beauty have made them symbols of the engineering feat of bringing water to ancient Rome. Once in Rome, though, the job was still not completed. The water first flowed through tanks to let sediments settle out of the water, and then into giant holding tanks, called little castles. From there, it flowed into still smaller tanks, and finally into pipes, where it was put under a very small amount of pressure. This pressure was just enough to make the fountains work and force the water into the ground floors of very important citizens' homes. Some people, who were not fortunate enough to legally get running water, though, bored holes into the pipes to gain illegal access to it. Speaking of the pipes, most of the pipes in the city were made of lead, as it was by far the easiest and cheapest pipe to make. In fact, though, the Romans realized that lead was not good for them, and avoided the pipes as much as they could. As Vitruvius said, "Water is much more wholesome from earthenware pipes than from lead pipes, for it seems to be made injurious by lead, because white lead paint is produced from it, and this is said to be harmful to the human body. We can take example by the workers in lead who have complexions affected by pallor." However, even with a bit of lead poisoning, these aqueducts were an amazing engineering accomplishment that allowed the city of Rome to grow to the size that it did.